Hello, I'm Chris Honeysett, and you're listening to the inaugural episode of the Go Fish podcast. If you're here for the launch, welcome. We are going to explore various pathways to faith for those who are seeking something in their life to give it more meaning and support. I'll talk with wonderful guests who will share their insights. I have sitting with me in the studio the very Reverend Christian Schreiner, Dean of the Cathedral of the Holy Trinity in Quebec City and Rector for the Parish of Quebec. Christian, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Hi, Chris.
Thank you. Hello. You're the perfect person to get us rolling here.
I'll see about that.
Well, I'm sure it's true. But before we get right into it, our listeners may already know, or might like to know, that the Anglican Diocese of Quebec is enormous. More than 620,000 square kilometers, divided into 94 parishes. The Holy Trinity is the first Anglican cathedral built outside of the British Isles, with the diocese being founded in 1793. Christian, you grew up a Lutheran in Bavaria, Germany, became a Lutheran priest in Bavaria, and had a second ordination in the Anglican Church of Canada before taking up your distinguished post here in Quebec City about 15 years ago. Were you raised in a church-going family?
I have to say yes. I did attend Sunday school, and when I was 13, I was confirmed, and there was a youth group after. So I would go every Thursday night.
So would you say the contemplative aspect of it came first? You studied, you learned, you knew what you were...
No, that was really, it was about having fun.
Fun.
That was
nothing
really
wrong
what it
with
was.
fun, is there?
Yeah, it was.
No. Would you consider it would you agree, maybe the best way to put it, that faith is maybe more a part of the adult learning process when you actually sit down to consider the meaning of your religion?
Everybody had kind of expected me to become a pastor because I was so invested in church. So I kind of needed to prove to everybody that I could do anything. And I did one semester of law. So at that point, I overheard at a party somebody behind me, a friend of mine who was a year behind me, and he told another friend, so after school, I think I'm going to drive a taxi for a year, and then I want to enroll in theology. And I heard that, and I realized that I was super jealous.
Wow.
So like, what's going on there?
A big wake-up moment.
Absolutely. So I went to study theology. You have a child's faith and your idea what you believe and what God means to you. And then you go into university and they take a big hammer and they just destroy all of that into tiny little pieces. You need to test the authenticity of one of the things that Jesus has supposedly said. And then you can kind of prove, is that actually something that is likely to have been said by Jesus or not? Ideally, what you do with all these fragments, a university, their job is to basically destroy it all, and you have all these little fragments of faith, and you manage to then build something
Pick
again.
them up, right.
And often they said, like, it does happen that what comes out at the end resembles the faith you had before going into it.
You have a very specific history there, but if you move on from the point that many young adults now did not have any meaningful religious education in the first 18 years of their lives, the upside, as Bishop Bruce of the Diocese of Quebec pointed out in his interview with Convivium magazine a few years back, is that these young adults may now have a spiritual hunger and could be looking for meaning, and may look at the church and see what it has to offer. Do you agree with that?
Well, it sounds wonderful.
Yeah, is that real?
But will they find, will they even look
I don't know.
there?
Well, it's a good question, though.
I don't know. I really don't know. I feel extremely privileged the way it has just worked out for me.
Bishop Bruce, in that same interview, quote, "This province, Quebec, has become one of the most secular places on the planet."
Absolutely.
Unquote.
Yeah.
Bishop Bruce's point being that we're now far enough away from the post-Quiet Revolution era with its objections to organized religion. So now we can reopen the conversation.
12 years ago, we had a meeting of Synod here in Quebec City where we had a keynote speaker, Douglas John Hall, who is a North American theologian. And he said, the age of the church is over. And kind of let that sink in. He went on to explain, he said, like, the idea of the church being relevant in the places of power, we need to say goodbye to that. Where the church belongs and always has belonged is among those on the outside. So
like,
an example that he gave,
building, it's in your heart.
well,
Is that what he means?
He gave an example. Like there are two in the Bible. You have the so-called the Sermon on the Mountain, where Jesus addresses the crowds and starts with the Beatitudes. Blessed are those who weep. Blessed are the sad. Blessed are the outcast. And he said there are two versions. There's the one in Matthew where the church, in a way, if you will, is in a place of power. It's up on a mountain, dispersing wisdom down to the people. Whereas in Luke's gospel, it happens in a field where everybody's on the same level.
Right.
And Jesus says, blessed are you who are poor. Right. So he said that is where we belong as a church. We belong with those who are poor. We belong on the margins. And then we broke up into small groups, and a person who was sitting at the same table with me turned around and said, so the old question, how do we get people back into church? And I was like, weren't you even listening? Like, that is not what we're all about.
I've had the great pleasure of speaking to the very Reverend Christian Schreiner, Dean of the Cathedral of the Holy Trinity in Quebec City and Rector for the Parish of Quebec. Thank you again, Christian, and thank you for listening. Till next time, this has been Go Fish. I'm Chris Honeysett.